Welcome to Wild Contemplations. I am Kristin, one of the hosts, and this is Cori with me, my co-host. I'm a 1-3 emotional projector and Sag Sun, Libra Moon, Pisces Rising. And Cori and I have been on this journey around the wheel to explore the energies, the current energies, through the lens of Gene Keys, but also weaving in astrology, human design, and our lived experience. So we're so happy that you're here and listening. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And Cori, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Cori. I am a 4/6 sacral manifesting generator in human design, a Cancer Sun, Virgo Moon, and Virgo Rising. And yeah, I'm just really excited to be here today. I'm excited for today's contemplation. And it's just always a joy to be on this adventure with you all. We will start with our three breaths, and then we'll do a little check-in with 62 in the earth and 61, which we were contemplating last episode. And we're still in the tail end of that energy. We're in the sixth line today. We'll be moving into the keys we're contemplating today, later this evening, probably pretty late tonight, and into the next day in some places, depending on where you are in the world. So that will be the sun in 56 and the earth in 60. But to start and land in this space together, why don't we go ahead and just soften the gaze or close the eyes? Maybe bring a hand to the body if it feels good. And we'll just take those three breaths together. All right, so we'll do a little check-in from over the last week, or maybe not even full week, but since the last time we met. We were contemplating the sun in 62 with the frequency bands of intellect, precision, and impeccability, and the earth in 61 with the frequency bands of of psychosis, inspiration, and sanctity.
This week has flown by for me. I've been very distracted, actually, because I'm going on vacation tomorrow. So I've been very, very much in my head, which I hate to admit, but I've been very heady and wanting to drop in, but not really having or finding the space to do that. Even when I took a bath yesterday, I was still not quite finding that peace that I was looking for. So I think that's just the part of it, at least being the pressure of getting ready to go somewhere, making sure that everything is lined up. But nonetheless, I would still, my goal is to, is to be able to find some level of peace within that process, peace within the pressure, I'll say. Um, so yeah, that's how I'm feeling today.
I love that we're both getting ready to travel, especially during this transit that's again coming up, this sun in 56 and earth in 60. And I didn't read those frequency bands at the beginning because we weren't quite there yet, but we always tend to feel it a little bit early. And so I will just run through those really quickly so that yeah, it's present already in our conversation. So we are contemplating today the sun in 56 with the frequency bands of distraction, enrichment, and intoxication. Um, in human design, this is the gate of stimulation, or sometimes called the gate of the storyteller. It lives in the throat center and reaches towards the ajna. And in the I Ching, it translates to the wanderer. So there is this real element of um, adventure and of movement and of travel associated with this key. Um, and then we have the Earth in 60 with the frequency bands of limitation, realism, and justice. In human design, this is the gate of acceptance, and it lives in the root center, reaching toward the sacral. It's a format energy, which we've kind of been exploring through some of the other transits. This one deals with mutation, and in the I Ching, it translates to limitation. And both of these keys kind of call us into balance, like an invitation to finding balance. Um, and yeah, I kind of also feel the 60 when traveling. The 60 is very like it's in the root, so it's very like earthy energy, and it's calling us to be like very present. It connects with, you know, the limitations of being in a body and being on earth and gravity and just all of the things that yeah come with being in form. And in travel, sometimes you kind of have to let go and accept some of those things that come up along the way that just are out of our control. So I thought that I would just throw those in there now because I heard them in your share, and I'm sure we'll hear them in mine. You'll always hear them in mine because these two are two of my prime gifts. So this 56 is my natal sun and also my natal Mars. And then this 60 is my natal Earth. So in the gene keys, that would be the sphere of my life's work for the 56 and the sphere of evolution for the 60. And then my Mars is actually the sphere of EQ, which is the emotional quotient. And then Kristin also has this key activated by her design Venus. And that sphere is called the spiritual quotient in the Gene Keys Venus sequence. So you'll also feel that from her as well, just woven through this entire podcast. So it's kind of cool to notice that as well. But I am also about to travel and been doing like the planning for it. And in ways I'm like it's super exciting to me because it's something I love to do. Like it just lights me up. But in other ways it's like, oh gosh, there's like so many things that need to be, organized in a way, and put into place and have a bit of structure around things. And so that part can get me in my head a little bit. And then I've certainly felt like the time has just went so quickly. Like some days I'll just be like, look at the clock and like, how has almost the whole day went by? It's interesting because here for the last couple of days, and I'm sure maybe where you are too, we've been receiving like smoke from the wildfires in Canada, and it's making it like it feels very like nebulous and just like you can't really see anything. We live on the water, and for the past 2 days, like you couldn't even see it. It's like right in front of us, and there's just like clouds of smoke. And I feel like that's kind of felt a bit like disorienting as well. Um, but I have felt too like the really inspired and feeling a bit more like creative. And again, I think that travel kind of excites that within me, but I have been feeling that 61 and 62 and just like new ways like we were talking about last time of just like allowing what is to be, um and knowing that that can never really change like the inner truth and knowing that resides within. So I think that's been what's going on with me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, we've also had the wildfires here, the smoke at least. And I remember the first day, it looked, the sky was like orange, um, like it was the sunset all day. And it was just such an interesting feeling, almost like if you've ever experienced like a solar eclipse, it's almost kind of like this odd, like something is off, like your circadian rhythm is like, what's happening out here? um and of course it's devastating that the wildfires are taking place, and it makes me sad that they're happening more frequently these days. So interestingly, because we've been called inside more, although yesterday I was outside doing some yard work, and as I was taking breaths, I felt a little like, as I took like a really deep breath, I felt like a little like pull in my chest. So I can feel some of that smoke energy, which is interesting and not something to ignore, right? Like, what is that calling to me? Um, But anyway, so I've been inside though more, and this week I've actually been because I was thinking what was I actually doing this week? And I was organizing. Like I found myself organizing things, and I tend to do this when I feel um like I want to say overwhelmed, like I feel overwhelmed and I need to um like get a handle on my environment, if you will. Um And I had mentioned in my check-in that I've been very in my head. And I actually was thinking about this last night about how like there's this deep calling in me that wants to come back to my true energy. And I know that that's not this chaotic, like heady space. And so there's always this like little pullback, especially with all the work that I've done, coming from corporate and being very much in a heady space all the time, um, moving into a more intuitive flow space. Of course, I navigate both areas now, but I certainly feel very viscerally when I'm in one space more heavily than the other. And right now that is very masculine energy. And um so I'm excited to go on this vacation, and I think I'm really going to unplug from business, which I have so many things planned coming up like in August and September. So my mind is like, well, but I need to attend to messages and like people scheduling things, and of course like my schedule's blocked this week, right? But there's nothing I really need to attend to. Um, so yeah, it's an interesting feeling, but I know that like in the past when I've done certain ceremonies and I'll intentionally go offline before I go into these ceremonies for like a few days. I know this pattern, right? This pattern of like my body is habitually going to my phone to click on apps to check things, and and sometimes I do it so mindlessly. Like I'll just pick up my phone and it's like it's just a habit. Like I know what to click on. And I've very intentionally been trying to not do that in the mornings, like when I wake up, because I don't want to get caught in like a scroll or, oh, like, isn't that interesting if I see something? I try really not to scroll a lot online. Um, but it does become distracting. I'm over here thinking, why am I talking about being online? Like, but it is a distraction. Um, so anyways, like I would notice in this, sort of detox from social media or being on the phone, I notice those, right? Like I go check social media, my email, my text messages, like whatever. I go check all the things. And I would notice the pull to that over and over again. So like that first day of sort of decompressing from or like releasing that is is noticing that and stopping myself, right? Kind of like when you train yourself through meditation. And then over the days it gets easier. And then, gosh, when you really detach, I mean, just the world that opens to you is so incredible. Um, and I think it would be it's an interesting space to navigate as a business owner, because I've thought many times about being online or offline. And I do know gosh, maybe at least one, at least one person that I really respected. She was a projector too. She went offline for a long time and built her business that way. And that was really exciting to me. And something that I'm going to be bringing into my business is doing like a snail mail offering, so like a physical mail, postal mail offering, instead of my newsletter. So I'm really excited to do that. And who knows, maybe that will sort of invite me to come off these very distracting spaces. That was a lot.
I love when it's a lot because there's so much to explore then. Um, when you first started sharing, especially about like being called into like organizing and yeah, just attending to like some of the smaller, more detailed things and like getting the space organized. I really felt the 62 because the 62 does carry this like organizational, detailed energy. It's the preponderance of the small, and it's almost like it can get us out of like our head a bit when we kind of focus a little bit more on putting things in order and just like it almost gives our mind something else to do than try to figure out our life, if that makes sense. And so I feel like a lot of times this 62 is also associated with like, yeah, just like um, maybe like coding information or like software engineering or, even like maps or something, just, yeah, ways to organize the information so that it doesn't feel overwhelming and that it's like put together in this way that again we can kind of like move through and with. And then as you were sharing, I was seeing how this 62, so and the 61 is so deeply connected, like how we've been saying, like the keys, we separate them so that we could kind of like tune into their unique energetic signature, but they also don't stand separately. And this is just kind of like the conversation that we've been having lately about us as individuals and the whole, right? Like they merge with one another and move in and through one another, and they aren't really separate, but we just separate them in order to kind of like explore them and talk about them and um, yeah, just kind of understand things in this way. So I'm seeing how they really connect with the 56 and the 60. Those themes of like distraction and limitation are very connected to the intellect and the thinking mind. Um, and the distraction is often, again, getting pulled out into the more external world and like chasing those, it's like the pleasure pain cycle. So, like the dopamine hits that we get when we are scrolling through yeah, online, and it can be really anything that's kind of externally. We're like searching for the thing that's really within us out there and thinking that that will fulfill the ache within us that we feel, to kind of distract us from that yeah, the pain and the suffering in the world too, you know. He says actually in the like contemplation in the 64 ways that he does, that one of the greatest distractions is the suffering of others and like the suffering of the world. Um, but this is also a stop codon, the 56. And we've kind of talked about this before in Gemini season with the 12th gene key. There are three stop codons, and there are these places that in our like genetic material that kind of tell the the material should stop being red, that stop building the protein. Like there's a break here. We're pausing for a second. And I really see that, just like you're sharing, like when you go to reach for your phone, like putting the awareness around it and then like, oh, I'm going to stop for a second. I'm not going to go through that. Like I see the way that I'm getting pulled out there, but I'm going to pause. I'm going to stop, and I'm going to maybe choose something different. And maybe that different thing is being more present right here, right now. And he really connects this pause and stop with this enrichment, this gift of enrichment, because it's less about doing and it's more about just being with what is and finding all experiences enriching, you know, like because it's right here, right now. Um, and I'm kind of going all over the place, but the 60 too, that like shadow of limitation, it's really about how like our thinking limits us. It's like the way that we're looking at things or the way that we see the world or the way that we've been conditioned. Those are the limitations rather than necessarily like actual limitations. It's like we get ourselves stuck, I guess. Um, but the 60 like invites in this kind of like loose structure and framework to kind of support us. Like it's actually a very magical key. Um, and one of my favorite lines is in this key. He's like, all that's needed for magic to occur is like a loose structure and an open mind. And so there is just this like real invitation with these two, again, to like pause, to be with what is, and to like open ourselves up to possibilities beyond what the thinking mind has been conditioned to ponder and think about. And like it really speaks to contemplation, honestly. um and like inviting in the new and inviting in the magic, um through finding balance, again, not like turning the thinking mind off, but knowing that the thinking mind is meant to do certain things and also can hold certain limitations based on what it perceives, and to find the balance between the thinking mind and the rest of our being. Um, and there's a real emphasis on balance in both of these keys. And I'm going to stop there, but we will kind of connect that to the moon in a little bit.
Yes, the moon. Yeah, it's, this pull that we feel so much, right? Like when we notice we're being pulled into things, it is something that is so prevalent in the world right now. And I think it does really take this active awareness to step back and say, oh, I don't want to engage in the pressure. I don't want to engage in the distraction. I don't want to subscribe to this limitation, like whatever it is. There's a very strong energy that's pulling in that direction. And even, like I've been, in the quote unquote work for 15 years. And so I'm very aware and I can still get pulled into these distractions in the world. Um and So I do think that there's this constant, um, call for balance or call for truth. I'm going to go back to that truth word again. Um, that guides us. And that is actually our being that you speak to so much. It is our being that's guiding us. That's the true guidepost. That's the true compass. Um, the doing energy, that pressure energy, the pull energy is where, we can lose sight of that and feel lost and feel like overwhelmed and I'm not sure what to do. And sometimes actually that's where I will lean into some of the pull is when I have so many ideas and I don't know what to focus on. Um, so you mentioned earlier, like looking for an answer um, outside instead of inside. Um, and I think when I think about it for a second, I think that it is very numbing to me. And I'm really looking for a distraction, if you will, to uh, stop the discomfort that I'm feeling of not knowing, which direction do I go in? I have so many things that I want to do. Where do I go from here? When I know that when I take time and space to quiet everything and just tune in, the answer is so clear. Um, and sometimes when I get in spaces where I end up doing like a big clearing, like if I get so overwhelmed and I have to just do a big like energy clearing, which I don't do these every day. I'm always like, why didn't I do this sooner? Because it's an instant relief. But the noise, I just want to say, right, that noise is so loud. And you mentioned like the biggest distraction of them all being human suffering, right? We just talked about, the wildfires happening right now. Um, it's a lot. I think about the animals too, like what they don't have a place to go inside and the wildlife animals, they don't have a place to go inside and hide from the smoke and um it's a lot. It's a lot of energy to navigate and still, find space to send love, to that. And also, like I was going to say, and also like direct our own life. It makes me think even when I see like a homeless person on the street, I don't actually offer them money. Sometimes I'll give food. If I have like food in my car, I might give food. But most of the time, what I do is I send them love. And just like, I hope that you find your peace, that you find your happiness, that um because that's their journey, you know. And what's interesting because it brings up to me even like the concept of giving someone a tissue when they're crying, how it like stops their experience, right? Or if you lean in to hug somebody when they're emotional, it stops. A lot of times it will stop their experience. Sometimes like in, you know, I would say like more like a grieving. If I'm grieving and somebody leans in to hug me, I might cry. I might actually cry more. Um, but a lot of times, especially in like public spaces, I would say, like if you're in circle, um, with a bunch of people, sometimes that handing of a tissue or hug or hand on the body is actually stopping the energy from flowing a lot of times, even when we extend it out for comfort, right? So I think about that, even like I was saying, with like, to circle back, like with the homeless person. Um, how is that how is my interaction with them interfering with their actual experience? So yeah, it's all very, it's all interesting, very interesting. How do we, like I said, how do we send love to to this suffering in the world, and also stay focused? Because if we hyper focus on the suffering, we've talked about this in the past, a lot of times we end up perpetuating the energy of what caused the suffering, right? We just perpetuate the thing that we're trying to send love to, and or stop or make better or whatever. um, and and then we lose that focus of what we're here to do, and what is the energy that we can bring into the space. What can we add in to make things, to bring our contribution to the world. um and and a lot of that, to me, falls back on the energetics. It falls back on this, um how is what I'm doing and bringing to the world impacting the energy of the world, or shifting the energy of the world? That's what I want.
I love this conversation. Um, I really am thinking of, this has been a big part of my contemplation, um, with my son and with my life's work, is this acidic frequency, again, that's present in all of us, that's part of this full spectrum intoxication. And it's about taking in, again, like all of life, even the toxins, even the things that are challenging, painful, the suffering of the world, all of these things. And I kind of see it as like letting it like almost pierce our heart, so it opens our heart even more, um, so that we can, like, I think of the intoxication as like being intoxicated by love, being intoxicated by life, he talks about it in his contemplation, like kissing life, like ingesting life, allowing it, again, all of it in. And so many times we think about, like, actually an individual's experience and their suffering is what is part of their path and what brings them home to more of their remembrance of themselves and their truth and their love. But it's like going through that process is what's necessary to kind of come back again. At least that's been my own personal experience, is like the moments of the deepest pain and suffering have actually brought me into greater presence with myself and an awareness of my love and my truth. And I remember I went on this retreat once. It was the kind of theme of it was peace, and they talked a lot about this. Like, we don't really want to be denying others their suffering, because if we think about it that way, right, then, like, just like you were sharing, it's interfering with another's experience and process, and that's what they're here to do and have and be. It doesn't mean that we can't be of service and that we can't help, but it's about, why are we wanting to do these things? Is our intention beneath the distraction, to, like you were touching on, to just to numb something, to relieve some sort of discomfort that we are feeling within ourselves, because it's uncomfortable to see another suffering. It's uncomfortable to, um yeah, to be in a place where you know that like the the world is burning and there's war and there's just so many things that break your heart. Um, but at the same time, like like worrying about it so much or like trying to do something about it in a way that isn't aligned with really what your soul is lit up by and excited by and like intoxicated by, we'll say. Um, it's not of service, like you said. It's actually just perpetuating the same loop. The real service, again, I think, is each of us like really bringing more joy into our lives. And like that's the antidote, I think, to the suffering. It's not like that the suffering goes away, but that we don't deny ourselves the experience of life and the joy of life. And again, like the kissing of life. And I think that's one of the things that has been challenging for my mind to accept. Because it's like, well, how can you do that when there's all of this going on, you know? But I think precisely because there's all of this going on, we want to be doing that because it's like, it's actually opening it up then more of that. You know, it's kind of like moving beyond some of those limitations and showing that it is what we're here for. Um, but it includes kind of all of it and not just the joy, just the pleasure, just the happiness. But like again, if we're finding balance, then then we want to be there for the full experience of it all. And I even think about it too with like, you know, I've gone through a lot of different ways of distracting myself and a lot of different ways of using maybe substances or things that are intoxicating to escape or to numb. And then I've swung the other way where I've like abstained from that. And like what I always keep coming back to is that it's like not one side or the other side, at least for me. It's like finding this like sweet spot in between. And again, that for me comes from knowing the intention beneath. Am I doing this because I'm wanting, you know, am I having this glass of wine right now because I've had a bad day and I'm don't want to think about anything else and I just want to check out? Or am I having this glass of wine right now because I'm like sitting at a table with friends and like enjoying good food and a sunset or somewhere that I'm traveling? Um, and for me, that's kind of been the shift. But I also will lean into the distractions sometimes because even in the like going into a distraction and feeling kind of shitty afterwards because we did it maybe for the wrong reasons, there is a lot of material there too. Um, and so again, I think it is this like real invitation to like trust in it and open ourselves up to it and know, as we've shared so many times before, there's no right or wrong way to do things. You're not ever going to go down the wrong path, really. It's all going to lead you back to where, to here, to home, to yourself.
It's interesting that you mentioned this being a stop codon, part of the stop codon. I don't remember how you
Yeah,
said it, but
it's a step.
um I see this a lot in you. You know, this like, well, I'm gonna pause, or I'm in a pause right now. I see this a lot in you. Um, Sometimes I think I'm just gonna say it because we're friends, but
Yeah.
sometimes too much. Like sometimes you're like, you know, you get it's like I'm gonna pause, I'm gonna pause, I'm gonna pause, and then there's no counter. action sometimes. But I do for sure see this in your like DNA for sure. Um, I think it's interesting too, that the wildfires happened and that this is a stop codon, right? It is like a natural invitation to pause. And there's a lot of noise right now, even on social media. I saw a post the other day about how like some people are posting about it ruining their summer, or like just people posting about how this shouldn't be happening, and Canada get it together, and like that kind of stuff. And it's interesting to me, right? Because this says so much about the person who's saying these things. And I think it's one thing to um understand that it's happening and send, love and compassion that way. And it's another thing to like push it away and blame it for impacting your experience of life. And it's like a resistance, if you will, that's coming out, and this is I wanted to go to the pool today and I can't go outside now because the air is unhealthy. And um it makes me think about when I was traveling. When I went to Northern California, I kept trying to go like towards, I wanted to get up into British Columbia, and I kept traveling north, and I ended up ultimately getting turned around. My intuition was like, go back to Arizona for 3 months, and I did. And I actually went back for 5. And what's interesting when I think about that actually is when I was in California, I couldn't go outside at all because the air quality was bad every day. Like you could smell, like for a month I stayed there. Um, and so yeah, like I couldn't do anything outdoors, right? So it naturally like halted me from like moving in the direction my mind thought I wanted to go. And then it flipped me around, and intuitively it sent me back to Arizona. I went and stayed in this magical um city called Fountain Hills. And yeah, I stayed like in the desert hills, and this gorgeous mansion. Like I manifested this mansion with like an infinity pool. It was just amazing. Like, and I did so much healing there. I did so much healing, right? So it's like where just like even as I said, or as I'm talking today, I can feel the hoarseness in my throat even, right? Like what is this calling me to notice? Um and like you said, it's not one or the other. It's this recognition and acceptance that it all belongs, and so um what is this calling me, to stop and recognize within my voice, within my throat? Where am I not expressing? I posted a story. I don't have my phone here with me, but I posted a story yesterday. Um, and it was like somewhere in between, like, wanting to put my voice out there and then being afraid of being seen, and right, like it was just all this like juxtaposition between these two opposite energies. It was really beautifully written, so I shared it. But it's that, right? It's that kind of energy, and nobody really talks about that. We don't talk about both. Actually, when I was in Fountain Hills, like an example of this is scarcity. So at the time, I was really like my business, when I was out there, my business was very fluctuating rather largely. So I'd have these big income months, and then I wouldn't have income for like a month or 2 months. And so there wasn't any sort of steadiness there. And that was something that I was really working on when I was there. That's why I said like I manifested this gorgeous mansion to stay in. Um, but I would wake up sometimes and feel like I like be in a little bit of a panic about where, how am I going to make money? You know, and I used to think that being like feeling that even just for a moment would like now I'm manifesting scarcity
Mm.
because I felt that energy. But then, you know, I really learned that like no, that's just a moment, right? And it's an experience that I felt. And now I get to weave in like what is the direction or energy that I desire to call in, right? How can I hold this space between um you know, desire and reality, right? How how can I make sure that I have energy in both fields so that again, like as I continue to put energy into my desires and moving forward, right? Like that's when the world around me responds to those desires. But if I get lost in like, oh, for a moment I felt scarcity, so I've just ruined my projection of having any money now. You know, it's the same thing, right? With experiencing this stuff, right? Like, oh, um I feel controlled right now. I feel like I can't do what I want to do because I can't go outside or I can't get all the things I wanted to get done in the garden today. You know, what is that calling you towards, right? Can you heal that part of control, you know, or frustration or bitterness or whatever's coming through for you know, anger. It's not, it's never about the thing, you know, it's always within us. And like you were saying, if we can get to this space, right, where we just take it all in and it's all just like, isn't that beautiful? You know, even like, you know, honestly, like I have a real hard time with deaths of animals. However, like if I drive by and I see like a deer has been hit, there's really a part of me now, like I've gotten to a space where I find it beautiful. Like I find it a part of just the natural cycle of life, you know, when I'm on a walk and I find that, you know, it looks like one of the crows got one of the blue jays in the neighborhood, you know, like a part of me is sad, but I'm also like it was at the end of its life cycle, like that's it completed its journey here, you know. Harley's transition, right? It's so bittersweet for me. I still look for her every day, you know. But you know, her life was complete. And I accept that. I do. It doesn't mean I can't feel sad about it too.
This feels very much like justice as they use it at the acidic level, which is the acceptance or embrace of everything in its perfection, just as it is. So I always, when I hear the words justice now, after like contemplating this, I just always hear just as it is. And like you said, it's like it really, like what you just shared, I have full body chills because it feels like the embodiment of these two energies. It's like allowing yourself to feel all the feelings about it, the pain that you have that she's no longer here when you go to look for her every day, like that pain, but also the beauty of it, that like it was part of life cycle. Um, and that, everything, yeah, that's just, I just feel the wisdom of the earth come through. That again, all things have their time. I think he even talks in the 60 about death being the great equalizer, the great balancer, because it's just part of like something that every single living form on earth experiences. Like it's a part of the experience. And so it's um there's real wisdom and beauty to open ourselves up to with that, even though it is painful, I guess. I probably said that a couple of times now, but
You want to talk about the moon?
yeah, let's talk about the moon because it feels very timely. So last week we met and we had the new moon. So it was in 62 where the sun is. All the new moons happen when the moon and the sun are in the same position. So we had that in the 62nd gate. And now for this sun and earth transit, we'll experience the first quarter moon. So that means that the moon will be squaring the sun and the earth. And that's happening in the 50th gene key, with the frequency bands of corruption, equilibrium, and harmony. And so you can kind of see throughout our whole conversation how these two keys um, really sort of feel the tension from that 50 and the invitation to come into balance. And because we started the new moon in that 60-second too, um, with those frequency bands of intellect, precision, and impeccability, it again feels like very much like the invitation now as we move through this lunar cycle is to find balance between the various parts of self, to come into greater balance within our own being, between the head and the heart. And we'll probably see it at larger scales too, like it will happen for us on an individual level. You can always look in your chart to where, in this case, you have these are cusp energies that we're contemplating today. So we're coming to the end of Cancer season, um, and moving into Leo with the sun. So that's the end of Capricorn, moving into Aquarius for the earth. And then we'll have that moon at the edge of Libra and Scorpio. And so you can kind of like look in your chart, but it's kind of cool to see the communication that's happening too, um, through these keys. And I think what I also want to touch on is like this would be part of like an incarnation cross. So for instance, like I have the 50 as my purpose, it's my design earth. um and this particular incarnation cross, the 5660 and the 350, or if you move them around, is called the cross of laws. And again, it kind of ties back to this justice that we are touching on here, um, because it talks about one of the biggest limitations that we experience, like as a society, is our laws, is the like red tape that we've created in a lot of the systems and structures that we put into place to enforce justice from a more intellectual or mental perspective. And the invitation I at least feel with these keys is also to kind of like open up in that respect of like, as we've just been talking about, trusting more in life to be the, you know, the one that evens it all out rather than us. He really talks about like justice not, at least at this frequency, not being about any sort of retribution, but almost being like given as a reward, um, as in like grace. And that again, it's like it all kind of works itself out if we allow life to redress those issues rather than us trying to control it through our ideas around morality and good and bad and right and wrong and what people should be doing. And so, yeah, I thought I would touch on that too.
Yeah. It's interesting because it brings up like for me, I think I instantly think about like gun control laws and how, you know, more and more people are wanting guns, and in some respects it's like we're trying to stop violence, but it's perpetuating it, right?
Mhm.
Um, when I'm asked the question, like why am I not like out there advocating for certain things, right? Like I kind of stand very neutrally in a lot of respects, right? Like I have family members, I mean, that have, or have guns that they carry, and I don't really have an opinion about it. I'm just like whatever, it's your decision, right? But people will ask me like sometimes why, like even when it comes to, politics and things like that, like why am I not like this strong on one side or the other? Like why am I not polarizing in that space? And I find that I want to carry this neutral energy because I carry this belief that we'll figure it out. Like this belief in humanity that we're going to figure it out. Um and being polarizing in one way or another doesn't feel like we'll figure it out. It doesn't feel that way to me, right? And it doesn't mean that I don't agree with some aspects and disagree with other aspects. Of course, I have opinions about things. But I find that, I'm not looking to introduce more control in my life. And if I have such a polarizing view on something, then it kind of feels like I'm, like I have a little bit of a collar around my neck, and that I'm like, this is the beat that I'm marching to. And I want the freedom to feel it all. I want the freedom to feel the shifts in the energy, to feel the change, to feel the invitation, to think about it over and over again. What do I believe? What do I subscribe to today? And have the right to change that, right? Um, there was something else I was going to say. I don't know. I lost it. Um, but yeah, it's just interesting to me that all of this is happening for a reason. And we can get lost in the happening of it, or we can take a broader look at it, and think, what are the implications of this? Like, how is the way that I'm going to respond shift or redirect me? And is it going to push me in a direction I want to go in or not want to go in? Even from a business perspective, right? I mean, this is something that, like, in these moments when I feel distracted, this is a good question for me, right? Do I want to be the business owner that wakes up and opens up Instagram?
Mm.
Do I want to be that person? No, I don't. Because I know that I have strong beliefs and values and services that I can be putting out into the world. And all that does is like send me down the rabbit hole of someone else's and delaying my voice, which is maybe part of the throat stuff that's coming up for me. But what is the energy that I want to be in, that desire energy? Am I walking towards my desires, or am I walking towards perpetuating a reality that I'm ready to shift?
Yeah. I feel the mutative energy here. It's kind of giving me chills. And I love that you bring this back up because when you were talking about it before, I was like, that is something that I really sit with a lot. I go back and forth between like being on social media and not. And every time that I hear of someone who isn't on social media and is like, just has this business that supports them and they're able to be of service, but through more of like word of mouth or just like, it kind of reminds me of some of the vibes that you've shared about your business and like being this kind of, it's like, there's like a speakeasy element to it, like a underground, like you have to go a different way or find the information through a different channel. And I just love that. And I think about it often. And as you share right now, like similarly, my answer to the question, do you want to be a business owner that wakes up and like immediately goes to your, Instagram or your email or like checking your phone? And it's like, no, that's not at all. Um, and I really feel the mutation of the 60 here, which is like, it's about like finding this relationship with structures and systems and the kind of like banks of the river, so to speak, but in a way that is supporting and holding and containing like loosely so that you can be creative, you can do your thing, and it gets you to the next place where then you will move on to a new system and structure. So I think really what they both say to me is like we're not meant to be doing the same thing. Like if this 60 is really connected to the earth, you don't just build the structure and then, oh, this is the structure that I'm going to work with for the rest of forever. It's like the structure is going to get me from here to here. And then probably it's going to either evolve and like turn into something a little bit different, or it'll crumble and I'll build something new. Um, but it's not, and this goes again at like an individual level in our own like businesses and lives and things like that, but also at a larger collective level of like the systems and structures that have been in place. Like they're not meant to be there forever. And you can see that happening. Pluto recently moved through the 60 for the last few years. It just recently moved out, I think, probably like in the winter of this year. So maybe like January, December, January. Um, and you can see what's happening in the world around us, that like a lot of the systems and structures just aren't serving us anymore. Maybe at one point they did and they were there for a reason, but they're not meant to like be there forever. And they're either there to like evolve or again fall down, and so we can get something new in place. Um, and I think Yeah, I feel like there was something else I was going to say, but I don't remember anymore. But
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. This crumbled. Let me rebuild it. But rather, what if we looked at it as this crumbled? What is calling us
Yeah.
next?
Yeah.
You know, what's the evolution, right? It's like when people have a crystal that they've been wearing for years and then all of a sudden it breaks one day. Well, that crystal is done serving you. You know, it's sad, it's devastating when a crystal breaks, right? But it's done serving you,
Mm.
you know, when people die, when there's death, their service is complete, right? People, animals, systems. Death is there for a reason. It's part of the natural life cycle, you know? So, like, yes, like, mourn, release that identity, and also get excited about what's about to be birthed. You know, what does this mean for us? Where are we going now?
Oh, yeah. I just remembered what I was about to say, if I'm not interrupting you in mid
No,
thought or
go
anything.
ahead.
So there is this real connection to, like, again, if the 60 is like mutative, and especially like at a very like physical, genetic sort of level, it's like taking the old and like, okay, what's working here? What is the things that we still want to like keep from this? And what is no longer working? What can we kind of let go of? And like, what are the new things that we can kind of like offshoot here, like add on to this that we've come with, and that is working and is good. So it's like not throwing everything out, but like kind of melding the old and the new. It's very innovative. This energy is incredibly innovative, and it invites us to, like you said, get really excited about what's coming next, because it's going to be something so like different, um, but still like honoring what was, because what was brought us to where we are. And that just came through when you were sharing. So I thought I would
Mhm.
finish the thought.
Yeah, it's like living in metamorphosis. Is that
Mhm.
in one of the gene keys?
Metamorphosis isn't like a specific keyword, but the 55, where the mutation is happening, speaks very much to metamorphosis. They call it like the dragonfly's dream. And it's very much about like a total metamorphosis, like how the dragonfly actually starts as like a water nymph, and it actually has to kind of like die to what it was and come out of the water to turn into the dragonfly. But it's like a total like transformation from what it previously knew, but still using it like morphs with the same
Yeah,
body, and
like
like
a
the kind of
butterfly. Yeah,
wings unfurl. So yeah.
very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. All right. Well, I think that's a good place to stop for today. Do you have anything else you'd like to share that's on your heart?
No, I don't think so. I'm just excited for our adventures and to reconnect and hear all about them next week.
Hmm. One final contemplation that I'm feeling right now is what what part of you, what part of me is resisting change, is resisting an identity shift, and whether that's within me, within a system, within a relationship, whatever it is, what is resisting that? Because I feel like I'm somebody who's very excited about change. Like I'm like, let's change the world. let's tear it all down and rebuild it and make it better. And even though I have such a zest for change, I still have things that I resist, right? So what am I resisting in my own identity shift? So I want to leave us with that contemplation.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
And last but not least, thank you all for being here. We appreciate you so, so much for being on this journey with us. Thank you for sharing, commenting, subscribing, all the things. And we will see you. We are going on vacation for a week, and we will see you upon our return. So lots of love to you.